Good morning, good morning, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, good night, whatever time of the day it may be. Welcome to my show, and thank you for joining me today. Today I am going to discuss dimethyltryptamine, DMT, and its potential use as a medicine to help treat and heal post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. For those who are unaware, dimethyltryptamine, DMT, is an extremely powerful hallucinogen that is produced in a lot of different things. We're finding it in a lot of different things. Plants and animals alike are producing dimethyltryptamine. We ourselves produce endogenous dimethyltryptamine. Endogenous meaning that it's produced within the body. Exogenous means outside of the body. We're not quite sure where DMT is synthesized within the body. We do understand that tryptophan is the starting material, and there have been studies which have shown that the pineal gland has high concentrations of IMNT and DMT, or INMT and DMT. INMT is another precursor for DMT. So, what's interesting about this medicine is that it is so powerful, and that when we consume it, it produces these extremely powerful hallucinogenic states. We're not really quite sure how it produces these states, but we do know that it interacts with several different receptor sites. It is a partial agonist of the 5-HT2A serotonergic receptors. It binds with multiple of the serotonergic receptor sites of the 5-HT1A, 5-HT1B, 5-HT2A, 5-HT2B, 5-HT1C, 5-HT1D, and several other serotonergic receptor sites. These are all frontocortical receptor sites, and they are all involved with glutamatergic release, glutamate release. And so what's interesting is that DMT isn't the only thing that binds with these receptor sites. Other things do have affinities and even have stronger affinities for these receptor sites, but don't produce hallucinogenic states. Another receptor site that is commonly understood that DMT reacts with, or which it binds with, is the TAAR site, receptor site. This is involved in the creation of cyclic AMP. Again, many things interact with these sites, but don't produce hallucinogenic states. And a third receptor site that DMT interacts with is the sigma-1 receptor sites. These are intracellular ligands that release calcium and are involved with several different pathways. The sigma-1 receptors are involved with neurogenesis and neuroprotection. They're most known for interacting or being activated during things like cardiac arrest and stroke. This allows the brain to be able to protect its cells during highly oxidative states, during high states of stress. So it's theorized that DMT is able to produce neurogenesis states and neuroprotective states. Also, the sigma 1 receptors are involved with neuroplasticity, synaptic plasticity. And this basically means the ability for the brain, the synapses of these neurons to grow and to branch out and to make more connections. And so these are also, with memory formation, sigma 1 receptors are also very important. So dimethyltryptamine is really incredible. It's interacting with these three groups of sites, and we still don't really understand how it's producing these psychedelic states. However, as we go further into legalization and to the decriminalization of psychedelics within the United States, specifically, we are able to do more research and study these compounds and the administration of these compounds. And perhaps these new studies will be able to help us further understand consciousness in and of itself, not just the psychedelic state. Such as when we began administering opiates and opioids, that we further understood the pain response in the human body. So perhaps we may be able to further understand consciousness and its regular forms rather than under its altered states. Through its altered states, we could learn these things. So what's really interesting is that all of those serotonic receptors that I mentioned, it seems that the 5-HT2A is one of the most important ones out of the hallucinogenic experience. There was a study done where genetically modified rats were bred to have the gene knocked out, removed, or well, not removed, but I think it is removed actually. It's either removed or deactivated through CRISPR, through cutting sections out and deactivating sections. And so they knocked out this 5-HT2A gene and found that these rats, these mice, I can't remember if they were rats or mice, so excuse me, I know they're two different things, but these mice did not produce the head nod. And now that sounds really strange, but this head nod is what is very prominent within psychedelic states within mice and rats. So the wild type mice, those with the 5-HT2A gene, did produce the head nod, but those with the knockout gene with no 5-HT2A did not produce the head nod. So what's beautiful about DMT is that we're able to use this compound and it brings us into traumatic memories very easily. Not always does it, but it can very easily bring us to traumatic experiences and have us relive these experiences, but reliving them in a new light. And as we become more well-versed in the function of these psychedelics, of these medicines, then we can have people who are trained in order to become guides, in order to help an individual move through these traumatic experiences relive them, but in a new light. Because not only is the sigma 1 receptor important with memory formation, neurogenesis, neuroprotection, synaptic genesis, and more, but it can also be correlated with fear reduction. So we can go into these traumatic experiences and really rewire our brain to be not so triggered when we experience triggers. For those who are unaware, post-traumatic stress disorder, those who experience it, experience things called triggers. Triggers are anything, any kind of stimuli. It can be visual, it can be physical, it can be audio, it can be a taste, it can be anything. A song, a picture, a person who looks like the individual in an interpersonal traumatic experience. These things trigger an individual experiencing PTSD and put them right back into that experience that they had. And it can be as severe as a full-on hallucination, a full-on flashback where they are literally brought back to the moment. I used to have flashbacks to being in the military. I'm extremely grateful that I didn't go to war and I didn't have to be in any kind of severe threat. I was in South Korea when North Korea was testing their very first nukes, and we were told we were going to go to war, and that was considered a war zone. And there were definitely, soldiers armed all over the place along the DMZ. And but I wasn't even stationed at the DMZ. I was at Camp Humphreys, and I was in a flight platoon. So we did fly up to the DMZ, and we would patrol the DMZ. But even with my experiences, I've had trauma early on in my life, and so it's made my psyche a little bit more fragile. And so my experiences within the military were not very good. And so there would be times where I'd be walking downtown and I'd see someone wearing just camo pants, and instantly everything around me would turn into a military base, and I'd be walking around on base, and I'd start having a panic attack. My heart would start beating extremely quickly. My hands and my palms and my feet would start sweating. My stomach would start cramping as all the blood from my stomach ran to my extremities and to my vital organs to be able to move and to be able to go fight or flight. And so PTSD can be severe. It can be to the point where you have a full-on hallucination, or it can be minor to the point where it's just, you get just that slight anxiety, slight panic. Those who experience chronic PTSD live in a constant state of anxiety and fear, whether it be conscious or unconscious. The mind is always waiting for that experience to happen again. And it's really difficult to live like this. I don't know if you've ever lived in just pure fear all day, every day, for years on end, but it's exhausting, and it's really, really difficult. And I am very grateful that I have access to therapy and to counselors who have been able to help me over the past couple years as I really delved into my psyche and sought to heal myself from these past traumas. But not everyone has access to this. Not everyone has the ability to find treatment. Some people are so gone in their traumas that they themselves can't get to treatment because of the state of mind they're in. it's PTSD is a very, very destructive, self-destructive, damning thing. And it's difficult because it's something we didn't do to ourselves. So, um, that said, dimethyltryptamine, DMT, it shows huge potential for being able to really help an individual heal from PTSD. I recently experimented with some DMT for the first time since 2011. I am very well versed in psychedelics and very well experienced in psychedelics. I don't use them as often as I used to, but that's because in 2011 I abused them. I abused them very, very heavily. And because I abused them, they abused me back. So I ended up losing my mind. And there was a lot that went on during this time where, looking back on it, I look at it as an alchemical calcination. The burning down of the mundane body to be able to receive the salt, the divine, pure body. And so I lost everything at that moment during this time, and I lost my mind. And I ended up trying to kill myself. From that moment, my mind created this delusion that I actually did succeed in suicide and killing myself. This delusion has persisted for many years. For the first 2 to 3 years, it was extremely severe and very difficult to live. At the same time, it was difficult to want to end my life, though I wanted to end my life again and again and again, because this was so haunting, so painful to experience. The idea that none of this is real, that it's all in my head, that I couldn't handle passing on, that I couldn't handle what I'd done to myself, and so I created a false reality. This delusion was very, very, very persistent. And after years of coping with it, just really by ignoring it and having panic attacks left and right because I thought I was dead, and I'd see something that would make me think this, and it's really hard to really describe what this delusion really was and how it worked and what my triggers really were, or even still are, because I still get triggered by it, but I'm able to cope with it a lot better. But if you've ever had the sensation that the grass is green because you made it green, or that someone said something because you made them say that thing, and it's not even so much as like you made them say that thing, but rather it's a part of your own mental complex, then you have an idea of what it's like. But even that doesn't really touch on it, because these were concepts that I grasped and experienced within the psychedelic realm, looking at consciousness as one entity, and we are just facets of this giant conscious gem. So we all are interconnected, and someone has said something because of me, or I say something because of another individual. But it was so stuck in this egoistic idea, this solipsistic, solipsistic idea that my mind was the only mind, and even that mind seemed questionable. That I couldn't break past and accept that all is connected and all is one. Because I felt like I was that one, and it was because of my suicide. So, recently, I experimented with some dimethyltryptamine, and I smoked it alone, and it was probably only like 5 milligrams, 10 at the most, but it was probably about 5 milligrams. And that's like a threshold dosage. And a normal dose is about 20 to 30, and then high dose is 30 to 40 milligrams. So for those who don't know, that's 0.03 grams is about how much a high dose is. And the dose that I took was 0.005. A normal dose would be 0.02. So I took a really, really low dose, really low threshold dose. And the experience that I had was extremely profound. You know, I did a lot of meditation and cleansing of my home, and really preparing my mind and my space to embark upon the coming journey. And the entire time I was having a panic attack. And it was basically because I felt that the DMT was going to rip away my reality and show me that I am dead, that I did kill myself, that all of this is fake. And so, going into it, I had a lot of fear. And I did a lot of visualization work. One of the visuals that came up was a visual of this little black monster, just pure black, dark muck. And it stood about as tall as up to my waist, my hips. And the visual was of me and it had its arms wrapped around my waist, and I had my arms wrapped around it. And I understood that this thing represented fear. And so I recognized that all I had to do was let go of fear. And so I saw myself release my arms from this muck monster, this dark nastiness latched onto me, only to realize that it wasn't latched onto me, that I was latched onto it. And as soon as I released it, it kind of muckled away, just ran away, and I no longer had this fear. I felt my heart slow down a little, but it was still beating quite fast. And I realized that it wasn't going to slow down anymore, and so I gave some thanks for the compound, and I vaped it. And, I didn't use a vape pen or a dab rig or anything. I just put it on a bowl and just used a lighter above it and allowed it to vaporize. And once it was crystalline DMT, and I've never had crystalline DMT, and so as soon as it got heat, it all just vaporized, and I was just like, whoa, okay, well, I guess here we go. And so I smoked all of it, I vaped all of it, and instantly felt this release. My heart slowed down. And I felt welcome. And I smiled and I just enjoyed myself. I felt so blissful. And I laid down on the ground and just started crying. I realized I'd been so hard on myself. And I started speaking to myself. And I said, "You've been so hard," and things like that, and cried and went silent for a moment and thought about, oh, psychedelics have this neurogenesis property, this synaptic genesis property. And so I wanted to really rewire my brain during this experience as far as my delusion of having killed myself. And so as I laid there, I consciously said to myself, I'm going to repeat, I am alive, or I am here, excuse me, I am here. And as I went to say it, it came out as a realization. But instead of I am here, it came out, I am alive. And then, I am alive. I am alive. And just tears of joy pouring down my face. I said, I am here. I am here. I am here. I am here. And there was more that happened that was really personal and very beautiful that I don't want to sully the sacredness by sharing it through YouTube, through Steemit. And if you are interested, feel free to message me on Discord. Message me, however, if you know me personally, talk to me. And I will explain this beautiful experience that I had. Excuse me. But it was very healing, to say the least. I still don't know whether or not I actually did kill myself, but I feel more alive than I ever have in the past 8 years. I feel more grounded. More here, more alive than I ever have in 8 years. And it's beautiful, it feels great, it feels amazing. It feels incredible. So, obviously, there's still a lot of work to do. DMT is just but one tool within the toolbox. And you can't build a house with just a wrench, with just a hammer. So there's a lot of work I still have to do to really integrate this into my life. But there is a lot of potential for dimethyltryptamine to help those with PTSD. Since this day, last week, I haven't experienced one trigger for this delusion. And it was at least 2 or 3 times a week I'd have the experience. Before, it was every single day. But once I came to the realization that there's no way to know, and that this is what I experience as reality for now, that I really began to cope with it a lot better. And now with this DMT experience, I'm feeling extremely healed. I can still feel some scars that are still trying to heal, but it's done so well. It's helped so much, and alongside all of the therapy that I've done and the counseling I've done, it's nice. It's nice to feel alive again. So there's only been a little bit of research and study done on DMT and PTSD. So I really think that this is an avenue that needs to be explored by more individuals. Perhaps MAPS could even put together a research team to develop a study for this exact thing. As far as I'm aware, I was only able to uncover just one study done on rats with DMT and PTSD. And then there was one research paper put together as a hypothesis stating that DMT, ayahuasca specifically, due to the effects of the MAOI, not just on the DMT but also on the human physiology, that ayahuasca would have the potential to heal PTSD, heal people from PTSD. So, and so like I was saying, it's not just, in my opinion, it's not just the experience of the DMT itself either. It also is the work you do beforehand and the work you do after. Like I did all this meditation and all these visualizations that were helping me beforehand lead into the DMT experience. So not only do you have the biopathways that are illuminated by the DMT experience, but you also have the biopathways that are illuminated by any kind of preparation and integration that you do afterwards. So DMT, in my opinion, has a lot of potential to be able to help treatments and healing of PTSD. Thank you very much for joining me today in this 30+ minute video, but it is a really important topic, and I hope that you learned something, and I hope you share it with somebody. This information needs to be passed around. DMT being Schedule 1, an extremely illegal drug, we need this compound to be rescheduled. We need it to be decriminalized. We need it to be legalized. We need it to be given to individuals, and the criminalization of our own minds needs to stop. We need to end this nonsense war on drugs. The war on consciousness is what it really is. The war on health. And so share this information, please. And if you made it all the way through this video, thank you very much. I appreciate you watching all of this and sticking through to the very, very end. You all are beautiful, and I hope you have a wonderful day.